Hi, thank you for joining us today. My name is Cole Seeger. I'm the marketing director at Beere&Purves. I'm very happy to have Heather Jahnke, our lead underwriter, to go through some carrier-specific underwriting guidelines. And we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty since a lot of things can be the same across each carrier. So she's just going to go through and point out some of the most important facts about our medical carriers, and then go over some of our underwriting documents that can hopefully help your clients when you sell a new group. So with that, I will turn it over to Heather.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Heather Jahnke, as Cole mentioned, and I'm the lead underwriter here at Beere&Purves. And as he stated, we're just going to go over some highlights of the carriers we represent to give you sort of an idea as new groups are coming in or prospects are hitting your desk, what carrier might actually fit best with them based off of their little niches that they have within their requirements. So basically our agenda will be to look at all of our carriers. We're going to look at our carrier underwriting. We're going to look at Aetna, Anthem, CalChoice, HealthNet, UHC, because those are the main carriers that we represent in our office. And then I'm going to go through our website just a touch to show you a couple new items that we have for you guys to access. So as I mentioned, here's our agenda. So, I'm skipping ahead. So I want to start with Aetna, and like I said, I'm going to hit on high-level points here because if you're looking to sell a group, I know you guys, you're looking at rates, you're looking at everything, but sometimes you have a group and you're like, what would be the easiest fit for this group? So if you're looking at Aetna, a couple things that I'd like to point out about them is that they have a rule now where if a group has prior coverage, it's very minimal paperwork to place the group with them. All they require is the employer application, the employee applications, the prior carrier bill, and the first month's premium. So no DE9C, no additional legal documentation is required, and you can move forward. They also are still strong alongside Kaiser because they just require 40% of the group and a minimum of 5 to enroll. So that's nice. They're one of the carriers outside of UHC that actually have rules for alongside another HMO. Most of the carriers now look at those groups who are with Kaiser or Western Health Advantage or Sutter as actually being declinations and counting against your participation. So that's a plus for them. The one outlier, and this comes up a lot, and you guys might see it, is domestic partners can count as W-2 employees. They are the only carrier that we represent that makes that distinction. Every other carrier that we represent considers a domestic partner the same as a spouse. So if you potentially run up against a group, which we all think we're still all seeing husband and wife groups that we can't do without a W-2, if they are truly just domestic partners and it's just the two of them, Aetna will write them. Aetna will consider them eligible as long as they are on payroll. So that is that's sort of a niche for them that I don't think gets exploited enough because we run into those groups quite a bit here. So keep that in mind. They're the only carrier that views domestic partners as eligible when they're writing together as a company. So the other thing I want to point out too is, with all the owner-only rules that we have out there, and it goes by entity type, by certain carriers, which we'll look at as we move through here, a lot of times we run into groups where they are a corporation, they are two owners, and one owner is on payroll, right? And the other owner is on legal doc, because maybe the owner on payroll has a less percentage ownership, and so this is how they're figuring it out. Aetna will take that group because they will consider that owner on payroll as a W-2 employee. So that meets their criteria. So they'll allow that if there's payroll there to prove it. Whereas some of our other carriers won't take them at all, or they have other stringent guidelines that the group has to meet. Okay, so moving on to Anthem. So there's a lot happening on this screen, I know, because Anthem has actually got a lot of good things going for it right now as far as their underwriting and what they're requiring. One of the things I'd like to say, and it's the strongest point, and it's the first point, is that they're startup friendly. And when we say startup friendly, that means right off the get-go. If you can provide legal docs for your group, then they will take your group even without payroll. What they require is a form. It's called the Conditions of a Startup and Enrollment Form, and it basically states that you promise to provide 30 days of payroll within 45 days of the effective date. So the group signs that, they provide legal docs, even if you have ownership that is not eligible, so they're not enrolling, That's okay. You just have to show, hey, we have the appropriate documentation to show we're a group, and Anthem will write them. And they'll write them on, so you have a group 831, they hire their employee, they want coverage 9-1, they fill out that form, they fill out the apps, they provide their legal documents, and Anthem will take them starting exactly 9-1. That's a big niche for them. A lot of the other carriers have certain requirements of length of payroll, length of time in business, but Anthem will do it as long as you can meet that 30-day payroll within 45 days of the effective date. Something I want to point out to you, just a little tip, if you have groups and you want to assist them in getting their legal documentation, if you check on the California Business Portal, so the Secretary of State, to look at them and they're a corporation, an LLC, or an LP, and you type them in, the state of California has now started to put out the PDFs. So whereas in the past you'd have to go to the group and try and get the statement of information, or perhaps come to us because we had a company that would pull that for you, you can now actually, on that website, you can click and see exactly what they filed. And so it just sort of helps you with the group kind of pull what they need off the beginning of the process and say, hey, I have your documents, I can see who these owners are, we can move on from here. So just a tip there on that. They're strong on their participation right now. So if you have 5 or more enrolled, their participation is 30%. This comes in handy alongside Kaiser. Most of the time on groups this size, you can meet that 30% requirement, or alongside any HMO actually, because they're not specific just to Kaiser. They'll do any HMO. They allow owner-only groups if it's not owned 100% by one person, so you would have to have 2 people in an owner-only situation. They can both be owners, but there have to be 2. And as long as it's not a husband and wife, because those husband and wife groups are gone. They've been gone since ACA came into effect because it was part of the law that was written into ACA. So keep that in mind. They're also strong in the sense that some of the carriers will do owner-only, but they will require that the W-2 enrolls. So Anthem will say, no, we'll do it, and the W-2 can waive if they have a W-2 or whomever, and the owner can enroll on their own. So that's an outlier for them. And it's even nicer, and it sweetens the pot in the sense that now, as you can see, individual waivers on and off the exchange are valid. So you won't run into an issue if you have a small group, 1 owner, 1 W-2, and the W-2 has individual coverage, the owner can still enroll with Anthem. And then another thing, they're also friendly as far as not needing a DE9C. If you have prior coverage and you have 6 or more enrolled, they'll take the bill. So that's a good thing to remember too. So 5+, 30% participation, 6+ prior coverage, no DE9C required, just the bill. So CalChoice is strong, as you know, because they are basically sort of function like a TPA, where you can go there and you can get your PPO and you can get your HMO. So you can have your Kaiser, your Sutter, and so forth. So they're a good fit for groups that are kind of all, have multiple people in multiple geographic locations who are looking for specific things, and they're not limited to that because their portfolio is so large. So they have decided also, especially going into 4th quarter, this happened last quarter, but really kind of want to push this for 4th quarter. If you have prior coverage and you have 10 or more enrolled, they will take the DE9C, they'll take the carrier bill in lieu of the DE9C, sorry. The one caveat there that I want to mention is they want it within a 10% differential. So you would want to keep that in mind, see if you can land within that 10%, and if you can, there would be no DE9C required. They are strong on groups who have been in business or who have 5 or more who are enrolling, because if you have 5 or more, they only require 1 week of payroll, and then they'll require additional 3 weeks at the end of the month in which they're effective. So they're also strong for startups if you have 5 or more. 1 to 4 is 6 weeks, which is pretty standard across our carriers now. 6 weeks for GI tends to be the way that they go. UHC, when I get there, I'll speak to that because they've sort of shifted that way too. They're incredible. CalChoice is incredibly flexible. Like we said, startups because 5 or more, 1 week of payroll, right? PO spinoffs, same reason. 5 or more, you need 1 week of payroll. So that works in those. Groups that have grown recently, so maybe you have a group that is over 100 right now, but wasn't, 2 or 3 months ago. They're strong at looking at those. Consolidation of 2 groups into 1 policy, that is a strength for CalChoice, and the reason being, the other carriers, excuse me, when you're consolidating two groups, what they want is a letter from an outside CPA, and sometimes they even want legal docs from each of the groups to prove that there's the common ownership. CalChoice is flexible in the sense that they have a common ownership form, and they say, fill out this form, and we'll allow you to write these groups together. The only caveat to that would be they have to be similar industries. So CalChoice isn't going to want to let you consolidate a group if one is, let's say, an IT group and the other one is, you know, a pet store. They're not going to see the common ownership in that. But if you had a mechanic and a towing company, you could write them together. They're also very flexible for union carve-outs. Union employees are not eligible. They are, however, the same as every other carrier right now, where both the union and non-union combined have to be 100 or less to be written. Okay. Moving on to HealthNet. So HealthNet has multiple participation requirements based off group size. That's not new, but I want to highlight the participation in the sense that, you know, they have for a long time had 1 to 5, 66, and 6 to 150, but they are currently running a promotion that allows 35% participation if the only PPOs the groups are offering are bronze. So they could be offering, you know, whatever HMOs they want, and if they're only offering the bronze PPOs, then they drop participation down to 35%. So that is a very strong participation move for them going into fourth quarter. They also, like Anthem, will allow the owner to enroll if the W-2 waives. So that's also a nice fit there. Same sort of situation as Anthem, with the exception that HealthNet does not consider individual waivers to be valid. So you'd want to keep that in mind. The example I used for Anthem wouldn't work in the HealthNet scenario because basically my W-2 had individual. So with HealthNet, you just want to make sure that the waivers are valid, which I'll show you when we move out and move through. I'm not sure all of you know what our medical underwriting guidelines look like, but on that, you can actually see what are valid and invalid waivers for each carrier. So you could reference that if you wanted to know in more depth what HealthNet would accept as a valid waiver. The other strong thing that HealthNet allows is that mix and match across all metallic tiers and networks. So that's nice. So, you know, you can always have the owners of the company want to have, you know, a platinum plan, and then, you know, the employees maybe want to go silver. So they allow that. UHC. So there's also a lot happening on this slide because UHC has got a lot going for it when we're moving into the fourth quarter, and they have for quite a while now this year. One of the biggest things I would say is the first point, 10 plus eligible, not enrolling, so that's important, may submit a form called the participation certification in lieu of a DE9C. So when they say 10 plus eligible, it is legitimately eligible. You could have a group of 11, have 2 enrolling, everyone else waiving, and all you have to do is complete that form. The group completes the form and signs it, versus having to have the DE9C, okay? They have rolled it out around this time last year, actually, a new implementation system, and it has reduced turnaround times for groups down to 1 to 2 days. I think we all know fourth quarter it can get very hectic, and turnaround times can really drag out. And the nice thing is with this system, it's 1 to 2 days. Sometimes it's quicker. Sometimes, you know, at most fourth quarter, it might be 3 days. So, I mean, the turnaround times are excellent. And when it is done in that implementation system, the group is enrolled. They're completely installed. So it's not just the approval and then waiting for them to be loaded into the system. They're automatically loaded into the system. Another niche I want to really point out, because this has been coming up a lot lately, is that 1099s are considered eligible. They are the one carrier we represent who considers 1099 employees eligible, and they're very flexible with that. And what I mean is when you have a 1099 employee, the group, they have a form, and the group fills out the form and signs it. This is my employee, this is their social, they're 1099, and I'm considering them eligible for coverage, and they sign it and they move forward. You don't have to provide miscellaneous 1099 tax documents, just the form. And the other thing I'll tell you is you can have an owner, one owner, and then you can have, you know, everyone else in the group be 1099s. And as long as that owner is eligible, so they're not saying they don't work there, they're like, no, I'm eligible, I'm either going to enroll or waive, your 1099s can be written. So keep that in mind. Again, as I mentioned earlier, alongside Kaiser, Aetna is one of the other, like Aetna is one and United Healthcare is one that actually have rules alongside Kaiser. So UHC wants 5 plus California enrolled with them, and then 60% of both, but 60% of the group between both UHC and Kaiser needs to have coverage. I really want to stress it's California employees that have to be enrolled. Sometimes I think we run into those groups where the out-of-state employees would like a PPO and the California employees want to go to Kaiser. So that would not work in the situation because you have to have a minimum of 5 enrolled who live in California with UHC. A big niche we're seeing more and more for UHC is they're very flexible when 51% of the employees are out of state. So there are multiple rules to that. So scenarios, I guess, is, it's almost like if not A, then B, if not B, then C, if not C, look over here at E. So you want to talk to your sales reps or sales assistants, or even myself or any of the underwriters here to walk you through those scenarios when you run into them, because there's a potential in those groups to still get California rates from UHC. So make sure you reach out to us on those. As I mentioned, guarantee issue now is 6 weeks. So basically what UHC did last quarter, I want to say, is that they decided to take them as startups. So officially, if you look at their underwriting guidelines, the rule is 50% of the previous calendar quarter, but in the state of California, they have now said, we'll take you with 6 weeks of payroll. I think the rationale behind there is, as most of you know, if you're looking through the quarters and you're going 50%, a lot of the time 6 weeks will hit that 50% rule. Individual waivers on and off exchange are valid, so that's strong, just like Anthem. They'll take those, and they will also allow the owner to enroll if the W-2 employee waives. So let's see, keep those in mind. So I'm going to flip out of this now, and I'm going to move over to show you some of our resources. So this is our website, and where you're going to find the underwriting resources is Back Pocket. So if you log into our website and you're on the home page, I think it's actually going to be the first thing that pops up on the right hand side. It'll be like a little jeans pocket and it'll say Back Pocket. So this is where we keep all of our, like, speaking to what I'm doing, our underwriting information. So our deadlines and offers, there's bonus programs, bundling discounts. A lot of our carriers have bundling discounts when you write multiple lines and add specialty products to the medical. This is where we keep our medical underwriting guidelines, our dental underwriting guidelines, vision, bulletproof, guarantee issue. I really want to point this out to you because something that I mentioned when we have boot camp, which some of you may have attended, some of you may not have, is that our documentation is updated a lot. So if you come on our website and you print something, I would check back if it's been over, I would say, a week to 2 weeks to make sure that you have the most updated document. Things are pretty fluid, and as we're going into fourth quarter especially, sometimes carriers like to come out with last minute promos, let's just call them, is what they'll call them. And so what we do in those cases is we actually update our guidelines to show those promos. So I would just recommend clicking here. I want to talk about the medical underwriting guidelines just because I referenced them when we were talking. Oh wait, nope, so sorry, wrong thing. Can I click on that? Yeah. Sorry guys, I got ahead of myself. So medical underwriting guidelines are here. This is what I want to show you. This was last updated 7/7/17, so we've been pretty stagnant. I think everyone's gearing up for fourth quarter. But we go over within these guidelines some of the points I hit for you, which is owner only, husband and wife enrollment is here. We talk about participation down here alongside a carrier. And then as I mentioned, we talk about D9C when it's required and enrolled. So effective dates, waiting period, everything is here. And so I wanted just to point out that this is a great document to have. So waivers, like I mentioned, you can find out what's valid, what's non-valid, husband and wife groups, owner only, so on and so forth. So I just wanted to show you that because I was referencing a lot of the points that I make in here are listed either on this document or bulletproof. So those are 2 key documents when you're looking at writing new business. The one thing though I really want to hit on is we now have a medical underwriting comparison tool, and it basically takes those guidelines I just showed you and allows you to kind of pare it down to what you're looking for. So for example, this is what it looks like. So you can literally pick your carriers. I want to see, let's just say we're going to look at Anthem and UHC. And how do they feel about, you know, a DE9C and owner only? Oops, did I click? There we go. Unclick. And then if you just come down here and you generate details, it will literally limit it down to those two carriers and what the requirements are. And you can save these results as a PDF. So you can do that by carrier, by group. If you want to compare all the carriers and you just want to compare certain categories, you can click that. And it'll generate this for you with all the information, and you're able to save it as a PDF and potentially send it to your client if you're wanting to show them some side-by-side comparisons, even on the underwriting guidelines, right? So we have this group, you have the rates. These are some of the issues we may run into, let's just say. Do we have a carve-out? Is it owner only? You can pull that information by carrier and then obviously by category, and you're basically showing them a side-to-side comparison, like, yes, now you have your rates. Now these are what is required to write with the two carriers that maybe potentially they're looking at as being the strongest. So this is a great tool. We currently only have our medical underwriting guidelines laid out like this, but we are going to be developing our vision, dental, and life guidelines as well. So that's coming shortly. So again, if you have any questions about this, you know, let us know. You can clear, you can start over, clear your categories, start over. It's a great tool, and I think it's a really good tool when you're really trying to compare things side by side. Like I said, you always look at the rates side by side, but it's also good to look at underwriting guidelines side by side, just to make sure that your group can fit into, you know, the parameters that the carrier has for them that you're going to sell to them. So, right here. Oops, let's see. Where am I here? There we go. Sorry, guys. So, long story short, I just went over this medical underwriting guidelines and the comparison report that outlines medical guidelines for all of our carriers. Again, anything from waiting periods to out-of-network reimbursements. It will pull all of the information you need and put it into one spot, and you can cherry pick what you want out of that. So keep that in mind. Again, customize as you go, generate PDF comparisons. There are categories you can pick, all under the medical. And as I said at the bottom, you can see custom dental, vision, and life underwriting guidelines will be coming soon. So in saying that, you guys, we have other guidelines I mentioned. We have the Bulletproof, which goes over all of our unique groups. It goes over the DE9C, owner only, carve-outs, consolidation of companies, spin-off groups, and it goes over legal document guidelines and what's needed by carrier, by entity type. Keep in mind when you're looking at these documents, the first bullet point is what is always the preferred document. Okay, so if you're looking at our Bulletproof underwriting guidelines, and for example, just that little small bit up there, and it's a spin-off, and it basically says under Anthem, a spin-off is treated as a startup. So it just kind of guides you down. You know, this is how they treat it, this is what they require, this is what they want, all right, in bullet format. So that's basically it. It's just a quick overview. It's not super in-depth. We just sort of wanted to give you guys, you know, some points to hit on where we feel that the carriers that we represent are pretty strong and some of the niches they have potentially to give you in a group. Really wanted to highlight the underwriting generator and where our documents are. So I know that, like I said, this was just sort of a quick overview. So if you have any questions at all, or you get yourself into a situation where you're trying to figure out a home for a group, or we need to figure out if documents work or anything, please feel free to reach out to us. You can always reach out to your rep. You can reach out to me. We're happy to brainstorm anything with you and try and find a home for your groups going into fourth quarter. We know it's going to be really busy, and we'd like to help make this as painless as possible. So thanks again. I really appreciate it.
And we will be sending a follow-up email with some of the materials contained in the presentation as well as the slides. And again, yeah, thank you for joining us, and have a great day.